The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. When evening had come, Jesus said to his disciples, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd behind, they took Jesus with them in the boat, just as he was. Other boats were with him. A great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so that the boat was already being swamped. But Jesus was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him up and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" He woke up and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." Then the wind ceased, and there was dead calm. Jesus said to them, "Why are you afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great awe and said to one another, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" The Gospel of the Lord. Today's first reading comes from near the ending of the book of Job. The book of Job is one of the wisdom books of the Old Testament. Some would argue it's the most wise of all the wisdom books. It's basically asking the question, why do bad things happen to people who aren't bad? It presents Job as a very wealthy Arabian sheik with a large family, large tracts of land, and many, many, many animals and much other possession. And then God is so pleased with him because he's also such a good and a holy man. And God says to Satan, "Have you seen my servant Job? How well he lives, how faithful and righteous he is." And Satan says to God, "No wonder. If you give somebody all the blessings you've given to Job, who wouldn't be righteous? But I tell you, take away all that, and he will curse you to your face." And so God says to Satan, "You may do whatever you want, but do not take his life." And so one thing after another happens, one disaster after another. First it's his animals who are slaughtered, and then it's his children. And in all of this, each time he hears bad news, Job continues to trust in the Lord and not to curse him. And so then God says to Satan, "I told you that Job would still be righteous." And Satan says, "Touch him personally, affect him personally, and then he will curse you to your face." Again, God says, "Do whatever you want to him, but spare his life." And so Job is tormented with every kind of torture and physical ailment that he can have without actually losing his life. And still, he continues to remain faithful to God. And then what my mother used to call Job's comforters come along. They don't come to comfort, they come to point out that he must be doing something wrong. His friends come and they sit down with him, and after a long period of silence, mourning with him, they start to explain to him why he has to be doing things wrong for this bad to have happened to him. And Job continues to maintain that he is righteous and innocent before God. And then finally, Job gets so frustrated, he asks God, "Why? Why has all this happened?" And the answer, we hear part of it today. I had a classmate who's now deceased who used to quite paraphrase it by saying, "You puny little man, what do you know about all the things that I have done? How dare you question me?" It's not quite as poetic as the scripture. Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? I will question you, and you shall declare to me. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who shut in the sea with doors when it burst out from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment and prescribed bounds for it, and set bars and doors and said, "Thus far shall you come, and no further. And here your proud waves will be stopped." And many more verses in there asking the same question. Where were you when I created everything? And that's the only answer that the book of Job gives. It's that there is not an answer, at least not one that we can ever figure out, as many different ways that we may try to do it, to answer the question, why do bad things happen to us? Ultimately, only God knows the answer. And the final word that God gave to Job was that he was simply to continue to be faithful. And Job was. And if it's any consolation to you, at the end of the book, Job ends up living a long life, has many more children and grandchildren, and even more animals and land than he had at the beginning. But he doesn't have his answer why bad things happen. He was only called to trust in God and to know that God alone has the final answer. That reading was matched with our gospel reading, showing that not only is God who created the heavens and the earth in charge, but Jesus, his Son, is as well. And so here in a much smaller episode, much less dramatic to all the things that happened to Job, but perhaps more realistic to us in our human experience, he's asleep. It's like he doesn't care, and trouble has come up. And they wake him up, and he rebukes the wind and the waves, so much so that they ask themselves the question that ultimately the whole Gospel of Mark is asking and continues to want us to ask. Who then is this that even the wind and the sea obey him?